Okay, this video is going to be about how we address factors of polynomials that are either irrational or are complex. And what it boils down to is that we're going to take whatever complex number or whatever irrational number we're given, and we also have to have the conjugate of that. All right, so if you remember, conjugate is first number stays the same, second number has the opposite sign. And this happens in every single case where you have a factor that is either complex or irrational. Both of those have to be part of the solution. So I'm going to go ahead and see about working through some of these. There's some tricks that I wanted to make sure that folks are aware of. It makes it a lot easier to do the work. So let's start with this term, right? We're going to start here. And we're going to have an x minus, I've got 1 plus 5i. And then that's going to multiply x minus 1 minus 5i. All right, so here's my conjugate. These are the opposite signs of each other here on this second term. So here's where one of the tricks comes in. This is actually really slick. We're going to use the associative property to move things around and make our lives easier when we're dealing with finding the solutions for these. All right, and I'm going to work this all the way through. I'm going to take this from our initial stuff all the way through to the end. So here I'm going to rewrite this. I'm going to have x minus 1, right? I've moved my parentheses from the 1 plus 5i to be the x minus 1, and then I'm going to say plus 5i. And again, I'm allowed to do this because this is associative property. I'm not changing any of the terms. All I'm doing is changing what is going to be grouped together. All right, so this is going to be, again, an x minus 1. And then this is going to be a minus 5i. And if you stop and think about this, this is very much the case of here's something that I'm going to square, and then this and this gets squared. So I wind up with the square of this minus the square of this, right? So it winds up being kind of one of those default kind of forms that we already know. I'm going to go ahead and just point out that you can, if this is too confusing, you can use a substitution. I'll use m, right? I can use m plus 5i and then m minus 5i and then put my x minus 1 back in after I've done that multiplication. It can be a little confusing just because you have so many pieces happening here. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to have my x minus 1 quantity squared minus, well, 5i times negative 5i is going to give me negative 25i squared. And we're really, really close on this. So this is going to become a positive 25 because of my I squared multiplying that negative, right? Because I squared is negative 1. The other thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to expand this, right? I'm going to work through that piece of it. And here I'm going to have my x minus 1 times x minus 1 plus my 25, right? And I've changed the sign here, got rid of the negative or the I squared, so it's now positive. So now I'm going to go ahead and do this multiplication, right? And I'm going to wind up with an x squared minus 2x plus 1 and then plus 25. So my ending grouping for this particular set, okay, all I've done is this set. I'm going to have x squared minus 2x plus 26. All right, Now I'm going to do my next one. I'm going to change my color so it's a little easier to see. But I want to make sure that we're following all the way through. I'm going to have my square root of 3 and a negative square root of 3. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to have x minus negative square root of 3 times x minus square root of 3. All right. So obviously this becomes a positive. So I have x plus square root of 3 multiplying x minus square root of 3. So I'm going to have x squared. Remember, this is one of those formats like this. We get rid of the middle terms by doing the negative x and then the positive negative 3x, and we have the positive 3x, and that makes it go away. So here I've got my square root of 3 and a negative square root of 3, so I'm going to have a negative, and then I'm going to have the square root of 3 squared. Right? And if we stop and think about that, that's just a 3. You know, square root of 3 squared, those two undo each other. So what I've got is at the end is going to be an x squared minus 3. All right? We're going to have our last set there, our 3i and our negative 3i. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that in a different color as well. So I'm going to say x minus 3i, and then x minus a negative 3i, which I'm going to just jump to the fact that it's a positive 3i, right, because of that double negative. And now I'm going to go ahead and do this multiplication. I'm going to have an x squared, and I'm going to have a minus 9i squared, which means I have an x squared plus 9. All right. So at this point, we can start going ahead and multiplying these things out. All right. I'm going to take, I have a system that's degree 6, right? And I want to go ahead and multiply that all the way out so I know what my final term, my final equation is, right? My final polynomial. I'm actually going to pause here and we'll pick up on the next video with this.